welcome to our second meeting of the West Seneca Central Schools in the 21st Century Commission. My name is Lisa Bridenstine, and this is Ed Bedient, and we are the parent co-chairs of the committee. Hopefully in front of you, you have the manila folder that has a lot of information that we talked about last meeting to start to put together as we start to brainstorm tonight and start to talk about some subcommittees. Once again, contact information. We're just kind of waiting because we have a few people that weren't at the last meeting. So if you weren't at the last meeting, I do have a sheet that has some contact information so that you get onto our email server. So I'm going to pass this down. I know Joan, we'll get Joan on there, and if anybody else is not on there, we'll go ahead and do that. The agenda is on the green paper that's in your folder. Our charge or our mission, just to kind of talk a little bit about that. Stephen Yee is our technology coordinator director here at West Seneca. And so what we're going to try to do is to have a link on the West Seneca Central Schools webpage that we can post everything and keep people up to date. So we went ahead and just wrote a little blurb here that we'll kind of share with everyone. And then if anyone has any additions that we would like to put into here, but it just, we'd like to have something that we can put onto the website to get us going. So the West Seneca Central Schools 21st Century Commission is comprised of parents, district employees, and West Seneca community members. The goal of the West Seneca Central School 21st Century Commission is to provide recommendations over the next 18 months to the West Seneca Board of Education. The Commission will propose to the West Seneca Central Schools Board of Education a range of possible alternatives regarding academic programs, the current use of the facilities, configuration of buildings, technology, athletic programs, fine art programs, and transportation, taking into consideration what the community values, the budget, facilities, resources, and educational programs. We're committed to an open process in conducting this commission and want to ensure that the work of this group is transparent. As work progresses, key information including agendas, minutes, meeting schedules, videoed meetings, and other pertinent documents will be available on the West Seneca Central Schools website. You are also welcome to attend any West Seneca Central Schools 21st Century Commission meetings in order to hear presented information firsthand if you wish. So, any other thoughts that anybody would like to add to that? Or do you think that kind of sums us up a little bit?
Very good.
You okay with that? Okay. All right, that was kind of a rough draft, but we can go with it if we think. Okay. All right. Great. So that's kind of what our charge and our mission is going to be. And that way, also, if you have people in the community, people in your constituent group that you're trying to explain it to, you could always refer them to that, and that might give them a little bit of additional information. And we will get that copied and sent to the board also so that they understand that. Okay. Moving on to the gist of our meeting. We have Joe Farr here from our Buildings and Grounds Superintendent, who is a part of our committee, but he had asked if he could be on the agenda for a few minutes just to kind of talk about heat and temperature. So Joe, you're on.
Hi everyone. At our last meeting, I heard a comment from that side of the room about temperatures in classrooms. I just want to explain to everyone what we do, why we do it, why we have to do it. If you look, this is all part of a control system that we have throughout the district, where I can monitor every classroom, every piece of equipment in the classroom. If I pick this classroom right here, okay, that shows the heating unit or cooling unit, whatever you guys want to call it, at the back of the room. What we do different when we heat the space is at your house, you have the return air ducts, you recycle the air that's in your house, okay? By law, we have to change the air 4 times an hour in every classroom, okay? So if it's 0 degrees out, we're bringing in enough air to change that chunk of air 4 times, okay? That's where it gets, difficult. If you look on the outside of the buildings, most buildings have a little grate underneath, one grate underneath each classroom. That's an open window, just a wide open shaft that goes to the back of this unit, and then we control the air changes in the room. Our temperatures, like I say, I can watch them, I can keep them within 1/10 of a degree of set point, but there will always be air movement, okay? That's why it appears cold. Temperature isn't, I'll call it a wind chill effect, okay? What I do, people see me walk around, this right here gives me temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide, okay? That tells me if we're changing the air enough in a classroom by carbon dioxide. That's how we judge it. Fortunately or unfortunately, I have a hyper sensitivity to carbon dioxide, and if it's over 1,500, I'll get in there and feel like I had 2 beers. Okay, right away I'm goofy. The limits, we can go up to 5,000, parts per million. That's ridiculous. And everyone would be sleeping, no one would learn. We try and keep it around 1,000. It's suitable for learning. Just this weekend, I was at a Palace Theater in Lockport. I'm telling you, I'm sitting there, halfway through the show. I'm just saying, okay, they don't have any fresh air coming in here. I'm just, in La La Land. Kids don't learn if they're in La La Land. And with temperature, there are studies out there that between 67 and 72 is the prime temperature for learning, okay? We set our buildings at roughly 69. We're within a degree. Some spaces, depending on construction, it'll go up to 70, but we're right in that, mid-threshold. Like I say, the rooms, when we get complaints, I have all my guys armed with these. Their directive is go to the center of the room and give me the temperature of the top of that desk, okay? That's the fairest way I can do it, because you will have, just like your house, you'll have a little variation if you're by the window, or, that's just the nature of it. Does anyone have any questions on this? And as you look, like I say, you have these openings under each classroom on most buildings. We will see buildings when you drive by, you'll say, hey, Potter's doesn't have that. That's because if you sneak around back, there's a big opening that goes into one big chute that feeds all the classrooms. We're still bringing fresh air into those buildings. That's the reason. I mean, if you can imagine trying to heat your house with the window open all winter, that's what we do. And it takes its toll. Heating bill at East Senior for January is roughly $25,000. Okay, that's for 1 month. It's incredible, the numbers. And what we do with this system is, as soon as I can get bodies out of the building, we shut it down. The 2 people back there know how cheap I am. Okay, I treat it like it's my own money. That's why when I heard the comment at the last meeting, if I hear something negative about my department, I take it personally. I take it right to heart. One other thing I just want to bring to your guys' attention, to just bring magnitude of what we're up against with all our buildings. This right here is a 2010 report, okay? With the little extra that needs to be done, probably $150 million worth of work needs to be done to the buildings, okay? Just can't do it. It would be over $3,000 on every household's taxes, okay? Just to get everything, what I'll call perfect, okay? It'd be perfect for a day. You have to realize that I have 1,000 units like this. It's like having 1,000 furnaces. Something's gonna break. That's all. Anybody have any questions? Like I say, it's just a huge monster, and if you understand it, it's, if you just take it at first glance, you say, oh crap, why isn't that done? There's a reason why stuff isn't done. I would love for it to be a perfect place, but We're just gonna make it good for the kids as best as we can.
First off, thank you for this. It's very, very informative, and it kind of adds a lot of insight into how things work. Secondly is, do the teachers, and I'm assuming the principals, everybody knows exactly how everything works? I mean, is that like standard, like each year, don't forget, this is how everything goes? So, I mean, just to kind of deal with it. So if you know it's gonna be cold, they can, just armed with information.
Everyone has been told. Is it their top priority? Probably not, would it be nice to relive the message a couple times a year? Yes, but, it doesn't happen, I can tell you that. I have sat with a bunch of teachers and stuff to, have them understand how these work. Because, there's air coming up the top. I want to put books over it to stop the air. Well, guess what? You just screwed up the whole heating system for a classroom.
That's what a lot of the teachers do. I will let you know that.
Exactly.
Because that is cold air that's coming out.
Well, what you have to realize is this thing, its job with the entire system is to maintain that classroom at 69 degrees. So if that classroom goes up to 70 degrees, it's going to try and cool it down to 69, okay? That's where you get the cool air. And we will not bring in, and we can set what comes out of here, okay? We don't let the air coming out of here be under 62 degrees, okay? Where if you're air conditioning in the summer, it's nothing at 52 degrees, okay? It just happens to be that it's winter, humidity's down because, we're drying everything out. It's a different feel, that's what it is. Any other questions?
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just curious if this applied to pools too. You try to keep those at a certain degrees, or you're not in charge of that?
No, I'm in charge of that.
I was just curious, just because my daughter swims and she's always like, it's freezing, so I was just curious.
You'd have to let me know, what pool, but I can pull up any pool. I can tell you the water temperature, the air temperature.
Are they all the same in the buildings, or?
If you're talking about West Middle, is that the one that, okay. It's funny you say that because it went on for quite a while before someone said, hey, we're cold over here, and we did fix that.
I was just curious, because she always says it, I'm like, oh, it's fine, get in the pool.
Hey, don't get me wrong, I mean, you'll have something, Clinton Street the other day, we had a pump failure, okay? I'm on the phone with Mark Dr. Crawford at 4:30 in the morning, saying I have no heat, building's at 52, just want to make you aware, we're going to get it going. We did, I talked to Christy, said, have your kids have their coats on, when they come in, temperature's already coming up, but by the time you warm up all the brick, all the desks, everything, it was 10:30 before we hit temperature. And we had the heat back on probably by 6:30. It just takes that long to bring one out of it, but I'm also a guy that doesn't like those in school, okay? For something that I caused, how's that sound? Or not caused, but am responsible for.
Joe,
Okay.
what do you turn the heat down to at night?
Typically 60, okay? And I say typically 60, when you get real cold weather and wind, if we go down to 60, we're not gonna recover on time. So then I just go and I tweak each building a little. Wind kills us, Same as you can feel the difference at home, but when you have this open window that I talked about there, I mean, there's just wind coming in and there's no stopping it. That's just the nature of the beast.
So this open window concept, is that the best way possible? Like, let's, say you were building your own school right now, would that still be the way you did it? Or are there better ways and we just don't necessarily, because they're older schools or?
This is a, what I'll call a down and dirty way, okay?
Okay.
There's better ways to do it, but the cost is, 3 times as much.
Yeah, I'm just curious if the open, is that the way it's commonly done?
Yeah, you'll find 95% of the school buildings, in New York State go with that. Thanks, Steve. Go with that concept.
Okay.
Just because it was reasonable.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else?
Approximately, what would the dimensions be of that unit?
This?
Yes.
Well, the outs, are you looking for the unit itself or the actual hole where the air is? The unit itself is, you know, this big. They're in every classroom, maybe 6 foot wide, this high.
Yeah.
The outside air is a window about that big. And we adjust it depending on how many students, okay? With the system, I can tweak how many students are in a room, and that determines how much fresh air I bring in. So if I have a room that happens to have 4 students in, I cut the outside air right down.
Do you have that information throughout the day in every building?
Yeah, actually, yes, I do have it. Does anyone sit there and monitor it all day long now? What this is doing is pulling up a history for that classroom there. And this was a funny one, because I was sitting up here, and I just looked at this floor, and it's showing 65 degrees in the classroom. I'm like, what the heck's going on down there? I go down there, teacher has a wet paper towel on the sensor, okay? Because I'm looking, you know, right away, I pulled up the unit, I'm saying, the unit's trying to heat the room, why am I cold? Do they have a window open? You know, what's going on down there? I walk down there, and there we go. Sorry, Joe.
Look at me, I didn't do that.
I know you did. You own them. Well, what this does is this gives me a whole history of, you know, what's going on with the damper that lets in the outside air, space temp, what temperature I'm putting out into the classroom. You can see where it'll start up, you know, heat up in the morning. Let me get my time here. Okay, 6:20, every hour I take a reading. And this I can set to every minute if I want. You know, if I have a problem classroom, I just tweak it a little bit. 7:20, I'm starting to warm up. What we have optimal start. I don't open up the outside air until kids actually walk in the room. I start warming the classroom, then I bring in the outside air. About 8:20, we're set at 69 degrees. I'm up to 68.2, 68.6, 68, you know, right up. And this is where the end of the day, the unit's shutting off, and you know, all the air just stops moving, and you know, it just warms up for a second, and then it goes into the next set. So yes, I have history on every unit in the district. Anything else? Hi, Jeff.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. I think that certainly answered some questions, and we appreciate what you have to offer from there.
One other thing, if you guys do look at utilities, they're kind of confusing. Once we break into a group that has to do with buildings and grounds, we purchase electric from a different place, we purchase gas from numerous places, they're delivered by, you know, the utility. It gets goofy. When I sent the stuff over to Lisa, I did not put in here the electric commodity that is missing from the packet. I looked at it earlier and said, what the heck, I screwed up?
No, that's okay. All right. Well, thank you for that information. All right. So last meeting, we had a lot of people with a lot of questions that wanted information. So we put out a bunch of requests for information. Joe put together some of the building information that we were looking for. Brian put together information on the pupils and things of that nature, and Kevin Love put together transportation information for us. So since Kevin's not here, how about if we start with that one? These were questions that you had asked that I submitted to him and he sent back. He also sent us a phenomenal PowerPoint presentation. However, I emailed him back and said, this is amazing and we're definitely going to want to see it. But I think when we actually address transportation in full is probably when we're going to want to look at that. And I'd also like to actually have him here to answer the questions regarding transportation rather than us try to speak for him, because I know I'm not a transportation expert, and I don't think any of us want to be put in those shoes. But if you, it's the one that has the red and black. So that's basically what he put together. So this is right now, as of today, what we have going. So the amount of school bus routes that we have 89 in the morning and the afternoon, 8 midday runs. They're anticipating a 9th midday run for 14-15 due to an IEP. For those of you that don't know what an IEP is, it's an individual education plan, and it's for any of our students that may have special needs. And that is, that would actually come under Mr. Graham's department. But those children, whatever their special need may be, they have a meeting with their parent is present. There is a representative from the school, the psychologist is there, and they talk about and design a plan for that child. And those are legal documents that we need to implement. So it's not something that we can say, you know what, they want that child on a special bus. Well, we're not going to supply that. It's a mandate that we have to follow. So some of those things that we look at, we don't have options of. They just mandate that for us. So if you see anything about an IEP or if there's any questions about that, some of those things are out of our control. Our hands are tied. Amount of buses, we have 75. Amount of staff in the transportation staff, we have one supervisor who's Kevin Love. We have a head bus driver, a bus driver on assignment, a transportation clerk, and a part-time clerk. We have 49 driver positions. 3 of them are open, not filled, if anybody's looking for a job. 19 bus attendant positions. 2 of them are open, not filled. 3 substitute bus attendants. 1 only available in the PM. 12 substitute bus drivers. 2 available as per their schedule. The amount of outsourcing that we do, we contract with First Student. So they have 40 large buses that they supply, 4 special education routes, 13 special education routes, varies due to IEP considerations. And then you'll see the amount of the transportation budget, $5 million. I had to make sure my decimals were in the right place, right? $5,806,954. Yeah, a lot of money for transportation. So that's kind of the gist of what we asked Kevin, but like I said, he put together a phenomenal PowerPoint that I'm sure at some point we'll want to view. So any other questions on transportation that we can, he was more than willing to have us, email him any other questions.
Lisa, is it 75 plus the 40?
Yes. So 75 are our buses, Joan, and then the 40 are the buses that we contract with. Yep. So it's quite the fleet to transport our kids. Okay. All right, so that's...
And First Student only supplies buses, not drivers, right?
No, First Student
No,
supplies the
they're-
whole package.
Their own drivers.
Or the whole package?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why did we go with First Student? Is it cheaper?
That's a great
So it's better
question.
than the second student?
Joan, when we offered the incentive for any staff member to exit the organization, that was one reason why we looked to outsource more buses through First Student. So we had bus drivers and attendants, as well as clerks and teachers and administrators all choose to leave the organization for that incentive, and in many cases this was the best way to handle transportation at the time. We had, instead of hiring new people to replace those who left.
Would you go back to just go having West Seneca buses?
I think you'll see us hiring more West Seneca drivers in the years ahead. Absolutely. I would not say that we would abandon an outsourced company. We still, even years ago when I arrived in West Seneca 12 years ago, we were outsourcing with with other companies.
Right.
So we would probably always have to do that.
I'm gonna speak on that. The good part, obviously, we don't always want to outsource because we can't control the quality or we can't control what they're supplying us. The benefit to that, you gotta sometimes look at is, if one of their buses breaks down, it's not our problem. We still get 40 buses. Or if, say, next year we decide we only need 29, we still don't have 10 buses sitting on our lot not being used. We just don't hire them, and they gotta deal with it, not us. So there is a benefit to outsourcing some of the buses. If we have lesser routes, we're not having buses sitting there just getting rust. The buses are, that's their problem. They gotta figure out what to do with them. We just don't need them. I know there's contracts and stuff, but there's, pluses and minuses either way. Obviously we don't have to deal with, buses we don't have to maintain them. We don't have to do any of that. They just show up, pick up the kids, hopefully do a good job and bring them back. I know there's always issues one way or the other, but I know that does help having the outsourcing there, is we don't have to sit on stuff that we maybe aren't using, so.
But sometimes on a route, they change the bus drivers before the kids kind of get to know the bus drivers and the bus drivers know
Yeah.
the kids.
Unfortunately.
Which is a good thing.
Does this, based off of this, if I read this, we have 75 buses and we have 49 drivers. Does that tell me that we have 26 buses that we're not using, but we're outsourcing 40 buses from first student? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I think there's a
too simple?
discrepancy with that number.
Right.
I do know that we have some buses that are not used on a day-to-day basis, but are used in emergency situations or maybe even for parts. So I would say that I think there's an error in
This was
document.
directly from what Mr. Love sent me, but I will find that out. We'll clarify that.
Part of what I was wondering is if the amount of buses that we have, and obviously we have bus routes, we have 89 of them, but one bus can handle, 3 routes? So that's why I was I'm sure we'll have them here to answer the questions, but I was looking at that myself.
Yeah.
That was generally my question, sort of asked and answered. Do we have buses sitting? that belong to the district?
There are some buses that sit, and that's actually a pretty good strategy. When a bus goes down, we can just roll, a second bus and not, have an issue with kids being to school on time. And I do know that, we have some buses, like I said, that they keep for parts. The biggest problem with the bus is the frame and, how strong and supportive that frame is. So I'm sure we do have a few buses that have maybe a weaker frame that we're not using on the road, but we're using for other needs.
So the surplus ones tend to be the older and maybe less reliable and
Yes.
on the way out of use.
Yeah, and you'll see that just about every year, we will ask the voters, to let us get rid of some and add some new ones so that we, maintain, as fresh a fleet as possible. So that's always, something that we would like to do. Once, buses get over 100,000 miles, I think that's when we start to worry about, the condition of the bus.
Would it be good for this group to have a breakdown of the ages of the buses?
Probably, I think when we have a subcommittee based for transportation, I think that's what we'll do, is we'll let the subcommittee kind of come up with those ideas as far as, having a breakdown of the age and what they do with them and what happens to a bus on a daily basis, washing, gassing, all that. I mean, I always wondered where all the school buses get their gas. Probably a big tank somewhere, can we get a no-co friendly saver card or something, So yeah, I think we're definitely a subcommittee will be transportation, and we'll make sure that gets addressed.
Okay, all right. If you think of any other transportation questions, we can keep a running list, and we will make sure that we get that to Mr. Love. Mr. Graham, you're up next.
Okay, very good.
Just
So-
a question.
Oh, yes.
When we cancel school because of weather, are the drivers paid?
Well, that's a great question. You just heard Joe say that he called Dr. Crawford at 4:30 to talk about a heat issue. Dr. Crawford has called me before 5 o'clock this year to talk about snow days. So we do have either Lisa Grimmer or Kevin Love in the transportation office before 5:30, but not a lot of drivers are in it that early. They do arrive around 6, to get their buses ready.
Do they get paid?
Yeah, I think they would get paid for a certain amount of time, but the key is the quickness with which we can close. So Kevin Love is actually part of the phone triangle, so to speak. Dr. Crawford speaks with Kevin Love, one of the first people to speak to, so that we can close schools as quickly as possible and avoid those kinds of overage or charges to personnel.
So it's not as people think, you just flip a switch and everything's fine.
Not that.
No.
Where's that switch button?
It's Frosty's weather station.
Yeah, I remember one thing I learned about one of the reasons why they sometimes have to cancel school isn't even necessarily the kids, but sometimes those buses, so difficult to get them started. Am I right that they've added more ways to keep them warm and the block heaters and all that?
I'm not sure.
No? Okay.
Yeah,
Just
but
technology.
I'm gonna learn though.
Yeah, technology.
Yeah.
Buses, cars and buses start, everybody remembers in the 70s when you had to stick your screwdriver in your choke to get it going.
Yeah.
Those days are mostly gone.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Mr. Graham.
Yeah, thank you. So some of the information that you were interested in is focused on enrollment. So I'm going to pass around some handouts for you.
But we don't have this now.
Nope, we're getting it as yep, so
This is real time, Bob.
Well, I didn't want to go on.
So I think, let's see, I have a few questions I think were asked of me, the last time we were together. And the first question was the amount of students in our schools at this time. Currently, we have 6,716 students from grades K through 12. With our universal pre-kindergarten students, we have 6,932 students. One of the important pieces of information as you start to look at this spreadsheet is that we are down 40 students since September 9th. So, you always hear different districts throughout Western New York talk about the decrease in enrollment or the changes in enrollment. And we have had 40 students exit our district since September. And that is a trend that's happening in all other districts, but also I think after this presentation you'll start to see how those numbers impact us in the future with respect to projected enrollment. The next question that was, any questions about that?
That's just kids that are moving, right? That's mostly kids moving from one district to another, right?
Right, and
That's-
we have a steady change every month of either kids leaving or kids coming in. So it's pretty interesting to take a look at that. I actually have, by the way, as I hand out some of these documents, I am colorblind. So if my color choices don't seem to make any sense, that's probably why. Just want to make sure you understand that. But when I do look at a spreadsheet with monthly enrollment changes, I actually will go into Potter's and I'll look at a particular grade level and I'll color code it. I don't know honestly what colors I'm choosing, but for me, I know that one shade tells me that kids actually have come into that grade level in a month's time, and then a different shade that I use shows me that kids are exiting also in different grade levels.
Is there a trend in that?
I haven't seen any trends, but
Yearly trend or?
I'm just starting to do that since September, but it's very interesting to see that there is mobility and transition.
And when
Joanne?
they leave, do you track where they go? Do they provide that information?
We have
for
it.
board records?
We have it. I don't have it personally in a spreadsheet, but we definitely have that information. Yeah.
But Bob could help you get that number up, right?
Yeah.
See if he could-
Well, that's why he's on this committee. Yeah. So one of the other questions that was asked me of the amount of students per building. So if we look at the handout that I just provided you, you'll see that we have the buildings, listed here, starting with our elementaries and then middles and high, and then the number of students per building. So obviously, we closed East Elementary last year, right? And that was a big decision. It was a big impact on children and families and school personnel and the culture that was developed on the east side. So if we take a look maybe just on the east side, we look at Clinton Street and we look at Northwood, Clinton has 579 students now in that building, and Northwood has 334. And I would say, Clinton has done an amazing job absorbing in the students from East Elementary School. And I would also, say that there's probably been some strengths and weaknesses or some pros and cons to that change. Probably the biggest con for Clinton Street would be parking. And our district did add a little bit of additional parking to Clinton Street to assist, but also talking through to our friends at Clinton Street, we know that when they do a special event, they'll do it off campus. I think they recently, will plan certain big events, in a different location. Do we have somebody from Clinton here? No? Yeah, I'm sorry, is it
Lynette.
Lynette, is
No,
that
I'm
it?
from Clinton. I was in the east and I've moved to Clinton.
Right.
And they integrated very well with the parking.
Parking is probably the biggest challenge, right?
Yeah.
And Joe, I know you helped add some parking. How many spaces did you
I think we had
19 spaces. And I'm sure there's room for improvement. But I think what's important to understand is that Clinton Street could hold more than 579 students. And, to see that East Elementary, children were absorbed into Clinton and Northwood, and we can look at the Northwood number at 334. You can see that's quite a difference between Northwood and Clinton. I'm fairly certain, Holly, that when I got here, we were somewhere around 600 at Northwood. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
So, so you can see that we still have room, in our buildings for children.
Just curious question. Parking obviously is an issue, and Clinton got a huge increase in students, but Northwood's parking lot is 3 times the size of Clinton. So why weren't the kids moved to Northwood over Clinton? Because you knew that the parking
Well-
would have the parking would have been better there.
Not a lot of the kids drive. I remember being at those meetings,
walk to
and
it.
I think the kids were originally going to go to like West L or something like that, right?
I think there were a lot of different.
Yeah, there were a lot of different ideas,
ideas.
and
There were options, right.
I mean, my opinion, parking was probably the least, because we can hopefully add parking spaces a lot easier than we can,
Isn't it because they had a choice where they wanted to go and most people chose Clinton?
People were given a choice.
That's why.
But, I think what's really interesting is, that Clinton can hold 579 students and probably more. And so a lot of our buildings have capacity for children. And as we look at these numbers, you have Allendale at 402, Clinton at 579, Potters is at 384, Northwood at 334. And, Potters and Clinton are exactly the same buildings. They're created by the same architect, the same company. They're literally exactly cookie cutter the same. So you can see that there is, variability in the numbers. West Elementary used to have 800 students here, and we're at 634.
So going forward, and I know this is probably a different committee, but because there's extra room, do you see, and I might be jumping ahead, but do you see one of our smaller schools maybe closing and absorbing those? Like I can tell you where I live, my kids went to Winchester. We're done there now, but we're really close to Northwood. I'm sorry, I don't want Winchester to close
I'm
that,
kidding.
but, to me, it would make sense to move like the families where I am over to Northwood. I mean, is that something that, like, realistically?
Well,
Realistically, I think this commission's job to
Okay.
look at all of these pieces of information and to make recommendations to the board.
Okay.
So over the course of 18 months, I definitely see that this commission will have some interesting recommendations or ideas or considerations. And then the board gets to, to review those and make some wise decisions.
just doing some quick math. How many kids are in a typical elementary school classroom?
Well, that was my question.
Are
What
there
is class size?
28
I-
right now, which is
Yep, I can tell
ridiculous.
you.
Felix, how is it in yours?
When she was at East, it was smaller. Now she's got 26.
Okay, so I ran some numbers real quick, and Clinton can hold, just running quick numbers, almost 900 students based on the amount of classrooms they have at 25 kids a classroom. Just to kind of show you.
But how many IEPs too?
Yeah, again, I'm just doing quick
Yeah,
math,
that's
like with
my
the numbers
issue
I
with class
have.
size.
Is
It's great everyone wants
you-
to move, but we're talking
oh,
class size.
I'm not for necessarily moving. I'm
No,
just
no, no,
throwing
I'm
it
not
out
trying to
there.
attack you, but I'm like,
Yeah.
we're talking about the movement, but it's the the main thing for me is the class size.
Yeah,
Trying to teach 25 to 28 kids, and then you have the kids with IEPs.
right, yeah, class size is a completely different thing. I'm just talking about the size of the building that, like,
Right.
these are. It's amazing how much we don't use right now. I mean, even Winchester, I know Winchester
Huge
only has
building.
287, and I think we had, what, 350 last year?
Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
I think one of the things that as we start to have these conversations, and they're tough conversations, and I think what we have to talk about is what we value, and you know, if you value it, and we're all going to have a turn to talk, and we're all going to have, you know, ultimately it's the Board of Education's decision, but we have to talk about what we value. So class size is coming up. You know, do we value that? If we're saying, you know, Clinton can hold 900 kids, they might be able to physically hold 900 kids, but are you going to get 900 kids through lunch at Clinton
Right.
Elementary? Are you going to get, you know, like certain things like that? That stuff will have to work out, but I think what Mr. Graham is showing us is the numbers that are currently there. Maybe what we can get to is how many students can each building handle to even,
To be successful.
Mhm.
you know.
Before they closed the schools, how many kids were in each class?
So I can tell you what it is today. Because I'm in a new position. I was the principal of West Middle last year, and now, you know, in my new role. So I can tell you, and some people, you know, we heard some classes are at 26, maybe 27. I know, Holly, you have some classes, you know, that are at 27. What's really amazing is we do have those pockets at the level. We also have classes, I think, at 18 or 16. Is that right? So, and I'm not talking about a special education class. So the range, I think, in the whole district elementary is 16 to 27. And so the average is 21.7 for the district. The average is 21.7 for the entire district in elementary school. So when you start to, and then I can tell you by building what the averages are, and they range from 20 to 22 by our 6 elementary buildings. So our average class size is phenomenal. It's awesome. Are there some with 27? Absolutely. Are there some with 16? Yes.
Mr. Graham, can you explain, because I'm not sure everybody's on board, what a pocket is? Because I think some of us as parents have survived those years of when you are a pocket.
Yeah.
So I don't think maybe everybody knows what that lingo is.
Sure. So this chart is what I meant by color coding, and I can't even tell you what colors I'm using. But so I'm gonna kind of just blow up, and let's use Potters, for example. Okay. So here's Potters. Okay. This would represent kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. These numbers are accurate as of March 14th. Okay. There are 3 teachers teaching in kindergarten, and the average class size is 20.6. Can you see how that flows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as we go down, we have, 56 students, average class size of 18, 69, here's our 23. So you can see that numbers do, sometimes go up as high as 23, and there's the bubble. This is a bigger group of kids. They will go on to 5th grade. And that will more than likely still be at 27 for class size. But there will be a group somewhere within the building, maybe perhaps class sizes of 18. So they do range, depending on the number of teachers in the building.
Now, when we see the classrooms there where we have some that are at 18, some are at 20, and obviously those are ideal situations. I'm sure Mrs. Quinn over there is saying, I would love all my classes to be that way because it would be awesome.
Sure.
Is the reason, I look at this and I say, well, geez, 4th grade has 2 teachers with 54 students. Hire a 3rd teacher. Now that's me saying this is the easy answer.
Sure.
But
and let me
what goes into those, because there's obviously more that goes into the decision than obviously looking at that spreadsheet and saying,
Absolutely.
we need a third 4th grade teacher in that school.
Absolutely.
So what is the thought process, and how does that part go on?
Sure. That's a great question. And I think as I go through the rest of this data, you're going to see that my projections for the next 5 years are very interesting at the elementary. And I would hazard a guess to say that we should not hire another classroom teacher at the elementary because of what I'm looking at for the next 5 years.
Because my kid is one of the ones in that school at the 27.
Right.
And I'm looking at it saying in 5th grade, I don't want it to be 27 again.
Sure.
And because I know the issues that those two classes have right now. So
That's funny,
and
'cause-
that's why I'm looking at that going.
But what we want to do, and you're absolutely right, and I pulled up Potter's because Holly Quinn is right here, and it's a good it represents the range, right? So, and there are a lot of layers into how a building principal tweaks things, you know, how they shuffle teachers around and move things around. And in some smaller buildings, there's less variability, and larger buildings there may be more opportunity to move people around. But my job is to look at the entire district, and to add another, teacher, when we see that enrollment is going down, it may not be fiscally prudent. So I will show you in the next few minutes how those projected numbers look for elementary. I actually think we are somewhat stabilized for the next 5 years at elementary with little, dips and so forth. And what I'll end up showing you is that our biggest changes will be in middle school and high school in the next 5 years. So is that okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Great.
Yeah. That's just helpful. I was just wondering how
My
that
son's
was
in 4th grade, and for the first 3 years, he had 3 classes at Winchester, and now he's got the higher class load. That 4th grade must have been like a
because
a good year for all
we
of
never
us.
had it was that way, and all of a sudden this year it's like 27 kids in a class, and then you hear the teachers like, well, the kids won't stop talking, and it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. It's a challenge.
they didn't have that before, and this year you got this big huge group, and so.
And so if it's okay, I'll just continue on a little bit more. I had stopped at West Elementary. Oh, Bob.
Is it simplistic at this point in our discussion to say that targeting the enrollment levels of elementary school will guide us for the next 10 years?
I think when you see hopefully if what I see is correct, I think we will all see that elementary numbers seem to have stabilized, and that it would be probably not prudent to hire another elementary classroom teacher. General education, I'm not talking special ed, general education teachers, my gut is telling me we have plenty in the organization.
Do you have a source to find out how many 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds there
Yes,
are?
but I will show, that's coming up. Okay. So, great question, Bob. So I think I stopped at West Elementary. We had talked about West Elementary being at about 800, and because we moved, right, the 6th graders to West Middle, that number has dropped, right? So we're at 634 at West Elementary. And of course, when you look at West Middle, you're going to see the big change, right? Winchester started at 302 in September, and it's down to 287. So that has been a big change at Winchester.
I blame that on the PTA organization over there.
Yes, who's the president?
Okay.
Some kids didn't get a hot dog in the party.
East Middle, because East Middle has 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they currently have 930 students. Remember, West Middle only has 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and they currently have 946 students. East Senior, this is probably one of the lower numbers in many years at East Senior at 896. What's interesting though is at East Middle, they actually are the highest that they've been. Even if we hadn't moved 5th and 6th grade there, East Middle's experiencing some of the highest numbers it's ever had. So they actually have a bubble of enrollment that they've never experienced before, and those kids will be moving up to East Senior. So as I continue to share information, just kind of keep that in mind. We're going to see that on the west side, West Senior will be dropping, West Middle will be dropping. We will see drops at East Middle, but at East Senior we won't see the same drops for a while. So I'll explain that as we get closer to that. And here we are at West Senior with 1,324, and that number also has dropped since the beginning of the year.
PTG president over there.
So we have our subtotal K to 12. And then our universal pre-kindergarten numbers, okay, which brings us up to this number. I was asked to, share information. Here's the universal pre-kindergarten column. Special education, students with individualized education plans throughout the district. I'm going to say that this number is kind of high, actually. And it may not necessarily mirror the percentage that we would, kind of desire. So there are a lot of children with individualized education plans that need the support of our special education teachers or our speech and language therapists or our physical and occupational therapists. And in many cases too, since the days that you attended school, we have many more children with physical and developmental needs in our buildings than probably when you experienced school and you went through your K-12 experience. So that's also a change.
The numbers are scary for young people starting families, that it's almost like 1 in 80 births is somewhere on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, some of the recent statistics about autism seem to have skyrocketed. But remember, autism is a spectrum, and there's a continuum. You can have a very mild form of being on that autism spectrum, and then you can have a very severe form. So we have many
used to
children.
call ADHD.
Well, or it used to be called Asperger's, and it had all different kinds of names. But if we just painted a picture of the autistic spectrum, or children with autism, and the spectrum it creates, we have many children with autism getting Regents diplomas.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting time where children are actually, and I want to add that as a caveat here. The number of special education students receiving Regents diplomas have skyrocketed in West Seneca. So, we really need to pat the general education teachers on the back, the special education teachers on the back, because I started here 12 years ago, and the number was extremely low, and we have totally flipped that. So it's really fascinating to see that when we have high expectations for students will rise to those expectations as long as they're developmentally appropriate. So our numbers in special education are higher probably than I think what is desired, but it is what it is, and those are the children that need the services. And Krista, I think you said it very well. We need to make sure that we're planning appropriately for class size and space for children with those additional needs.
The universal pre-K number,
Mm-hmm.
is that, what sets that number?
Great question. We actually get a grant from the New York State Department of Education to help pay for universal pre-kindergarten. That's sort of what helps sets the number.
Okay.
So we have about the number isn't exact, it's not perfect with 216-ish kids in our buildings right now. We have 4 classrooms at Potters and 2 at Northwood, and we're looking to balance that. We're looking to have 3 classrooms at Potters next year and 3 at Northwood. The Potter Road Universal Pre-Kindergarten classrooms would contain students from Potter Road, West Elementary, and Allendale, and the Universal Pre-Kindergarten students at Northwood would contain Winchester, Clinton, and Northwood students. But we also have students serviced through Universal Pre-Kindergarten at EduKids in West Seneca, and one other UPK location. So we have about 10% of the students that are in our grant serviced outside of the West Seneca Public Schools, and everybody else are serviced inside our schools with our certified, highly qualified teachers.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if that was what was the demand is what set it, or the grant. So obviously the grant.
The grant. Yep.
And what if there's the 10% that are being done through EduKids and outside?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a space part at the? Is it a teacher/space issue at the schools, or is it just?
It's a
that's what was.
Great question. Part of the grant requires that at least 10% be serviced outside of the public school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Page 1 is like the other one, right? Page
No, it's not page 1. The name is escaping me right now.
It used to be page 1 right next door, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
and other locations too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Weren't some of them going to the Y?
We don't have any
That's all
at the
I
Y.
thought.
Child
District.
or something?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I was asked to give you the number of classroom teachers per building. We have the number of teacher aides per building. And remember that for the most part, our teacher aides are servicing children, okay? And particularly children with special education needs. These are the number of reading teachers per building. We have other specialists who have specialists in reading, but may not necessarily have the reading certification and may have gotten their master's degree in literacy, and they're called literacy specialists. So you can see that over time, we have put a high value on getting teachers to give extra support in the area of reading. And just a quick, if I take all of these two columns and we add them together, we have approximately 16 specialists in our buildings providing either reading or literacy, special instruction for children. So that's a pretty important number. We do have some teaching assistants. Teaching assistants are typically, most of the time in our district, certified teachers who are coming in at an entry-level position to provide support for our students. So we have some that are not, this column says non-UPK. We have teaching assistants who support our teachers in the universal pre-kindergarten classrooms, but these three are not supporting universal pre-kindergarten. They're supporting the building in a variety of capacities. These are the number of speech and speech therapists in our district. We have 13 speech and language pathologists who work with our students. These are the number of counselors who work primarily at the middle school and high school. And as you can see, we have 10. We also have a social worker in each of our buildings, which is a tremendous asset to our district and those students. We also have 7 psychologists who work in our district and support all the needs of our buildings and the students. And currently we have 9 librarians split up between 10 buildings. And we know that that's something that we're looking at carefully. One of the issues that I think will help resolve some of this is that we're currently operating 2 libraries at the East Middle Campus, and more than likely we need to use 1 library at the East Middle Campus. So that's going to help us provide library support somewhat more equitably around the district. So those were some of the questions that were asked for me to present. They were, the number of students in the building per grade level, the number of aides and support staff per building. I was asked to provide the number of teachers in the district per building. I was asked to give you classroom building maps. I will have those available for you at our next meeting. And then I'm also going to share with you graduation rates, special education students I shared, and the next big portion of my presentation will be about projected enrollment. I just want to show the graduation rates, and then I know there are a couple questions. So these are last year's graduation rates, and we had 84% of the students graduate from E-senior and actually 91% from West Senior. Graduation rates fluctuate depending on the number of students with special education needs or the number of students who don't have special education needs but have other needs. We do have a very successful alternative high school equivalency program, which was the old GED, and Dr. Terry Brancato runs that program, and a lot of kids who sometimes drop out end up going into that program and then earning their equivalency certificate. So I wanted to make sure that
Are they included in these, or that are alternative learning kids?
No, these would not be included
those
in
are
this
just
numbers
your-
because they're in the program right now.
Because they're not a Regents, right? Because
They're-
they have the equivalency diploma.
Right, or they're still in the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about English as a second language student? I know they're all housed on the east side, correct?
Yep. We have about 35 students who fall within the category of English as a second language.
Okay.
And we have 2 teachers who support those 35 students.
And they're all on the east side, correct?
Yes.
Am I right on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just programmatically, it
Right.
allows us to have the two teachers
Makes
work
sense.
together,
Yeah.
but also to support the elementary, middle, and high school needs for ESL.
Right.
And that's actually a mandate that they have to be in the same
Yeah,
area.
no, I think that's
Yeah.
great. I think that, I know that was a concern when East was closing as to where they were gonna.
Was that your question you had before? or
That
do you have
wasn't my
another one?
question, no, but Bob was waiting to.
Yeah.
so-
And, go ahead, Bob.
Just a knee-jerk kind of observation that certainly doesn't have a lot of deep validity, just the numbers. Comparing the student population at East and West Senior and looking at the classroom teachers in those two buildings, it seems to be disproportionate.
Yeah, that's a great catch, Bob. We have more students in life skill classes, special education life skill classes, non-region sparing classes at East Senior High School. So we have, Krista had mentioned it before, we would have a whole classroom dedicated to 6 students or 12 students and a teacher dedicated to those students. So the numbers are going to be a little higher, I think, based on the special education.
That explains it very well.
Yeah. I'm going to jump to Joan.
Going back to one of your comments, you said you gave people a choice to what school they would go to.
Yeah, I mean.
Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Because maybe it would.
Well, it was a pretty difficult situation, right, at
Okay.
closing that school.
Right.
And, we just thought it would be best to try to accommodate the needs and the desires of the community to the best that we could possibly do.
Would you always do that though? I
No,
mean-
no, that's not something we've always done. But remember, we changed the whole school zone,
Right,
right?
exactly.
And most people chose Clinton. So I think geographically, if we looked at a map and you looked at East Elementary and you just kind of went north, even though they're not that far away from each other, it kind of ends up at Clinton more so than at Northwood. If you were looking at a map from East Elementary up to Clinton.
But if you didn't give them a choice, probably the classroom size would have been better.
Brian, can I just ask
Yeah,
one more
just one
question?
second. Joan, I didn't hear that last part.
I said, probably if you didn't give them a choice, the classroom size would have been better then, right?
I don't think the classroom size is a problem at all.
Okay.
We have a problem with parking, and there's a blip with 26 kids, but that's not a really, it's not the biggest class size, right? The biggest class size is 27 in our district. The average at Clinton is, I can tell you what it is, it's probably 21 or 22. So it's very good. Diane?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Do we still outsource with BOCES at all? Do we have BOCES teachers still?
Yeah, we
that
have,
are-
so we have children who are transported from West Seneca to many schools that provide special education services.
Right.
Heritage Centers, Falk School, Gateway, Aspire,
Right.
Summit. So yeah, we still have children who don't attend our, home school here in West Seneca, but
Right.
receive services outside of the district.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
When my daughter actually started in September, she didn't have 26, but some children had moved into the school.
Yeah.
And they chose that classroom over other classrooms. Do they do that based on the teacher and the teacher's strengths?
Yep, the principal could have lots of reasons why.
I was just curious how they
Yeah.
decide to bulk up one room
Yeah,
other
I'm
than
gonna
the
keep
other.
picking on Krista, because she actually brought up a good
I
point.
got lots more for you.
It could very well be a special
Just a
education
start.
need in the classroom that the principal may have wanted to keep the numbers smaller in a
I
particular
was
class.
just curious
Yeah.
if a teacher has a certain strength, or maybe some of the children that room are doing, if they look at all of that?
They do, and
Okay.
I just, because we will more than likely, over time, the next 18 months, talk a lot about class size. I think it's important that maybe at some future meeting, we look at some of the literature about the effective teacher. And some of the literature says that if you're an effective teacher with 18 students, you're also an effective teacher with 27 students. And there isn't, and actually Malcolm Gladwell, I think, wrote a book. He wrote The Tipping Point, and he also wrote a book recently that actually is dedicated to a lot of education research. And he is really saying that if we're going to hang our hat on class size, the class size needs to be much lower than 18 or 16 to have a true research statistically effect on achievement. So, so I think that's why, the Board of Education long ago had set guidelines, for each grade level. And, sometimes, I think the guideline at 6th grade is between 26 and 29. And when I was the principal of Winchester, we had, in Wade and Farrell-Bourne, had class sizes of 29.
Yeah.
But it also, just as I just want to keep mentioning it, my son, who goes to Lorraine Elementary, is in a class size of 30, but he's highly effective. So it's individual per student, but also, if you're an effective teacher, you're effective with 26, you're effective with 18. And that's pretty much what I think the literature is saying.
Yeah. And my daughter's teacher is effective, and it actually has gone smoothly, and she's doing well.
Yeah.
What I notice is the room does not house 26, so when I go in there, it's very hard to walk around because they're all crammed.
Yeah.
And she's a wonderful teacher, and I can't speak for the other children, but I know my daughter is doing phenomenal. But it's just they're shoved. They're like
She needs a
crammed.
dormer added onto her.
That's what she needs. And she's been very creative as to how she has structured, but the room is bright purple. So you have all these kids in this bright purple room. It's like claustrophobic almost. So, just throwing that out.
Brian wouldn't know it was purple. He thought it was gray.
So, if it's okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about what the future might look like.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great.
And Brian Schultz and, yeah, yourself.
Thank you. I didn't take one for myself.
Yeah, sure.
I got this. I'm good here.
Brian Schultz and Charles Lehman use a website, and I don't know if I can pull it up here. Let's see. So there's a website run by health.ny.gov/statistics and /vital statistics and /2010 table. But this is a pretty interesting little website, and it kind of captures the number of births in West Seneca, attributed to the West Seneca community over time. So I've used this website to, create this spreadsheet. And so in the spreadsheet, I have the numbers that I just showed you populated up here on top. And I'm just going to leave that up there for a minute. I'm not going to talk, and just look at it, and then maybe just, if it's okay, Lisa, just look at it and take literally 2 minutes just to talk to the person next to you about what you see. What do you see in the first and second row?
It's really pretty steady. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty stable as far as births. Browse data, means looking at the total even. I think you're just saying something on the other.
So 500.
You're always doing like my cat.
In that side.
Your cat, my cat.
So I live in one
Okay, how are those?
That's what I'm So where would the 4th grade kids? What year would that be?
Actually, it's right there.
What grade? My son's in 4th grade.
How much?
3 classes. His son's
The way to look at it.
Yeah, we only get 2, so I'm 1 and 3 when I was, so I'm 1 and 3. My mother was only 1 and 2, but then hers, you got my grandmother was 1 and 8.
Right now.
My grandmother was 1 and 12, so next year he'll be 16.
Yes.
But.
Okay. That is insane. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for indulging me with that.
Hey Brian, how does our numbers stack up to Lancaster or?
Didn't look. I don't.
Okay.
It's a great question.
Because we're always trained to think that West Seneca is dying, and Lancaster and Williamsville, all those places are booming. That's what we're always trained to think. So I'm just sitting here saying,
Right.
this number tells me that we're not dying. We've held steady for 10 years with births in this area. So
We're consistent.
what is happening then? Is Lancaster holding steady too? Is it all just we're brainwashed or?
Well, you know, when we did choose to close East Elementary, I think I spoke and said that we were down 675 students, you know, over, I don't know, the last 10 years. So that's a whole building, you know, so we know that enrollment has decreased, right? And steadily. Even though this row looks, and I'm guessing you're seeing what I'm seeing, is it relatively consistent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as I said earlier, I think our elementary numbers are stabilizing, but they're nowhere near they were 10 years ago. Okay? So, what else, before I start talking, what else did you notice and talk about in your small group or with the neighbor next to you?
Ryan,
Yeah.
can I take a shot just on the demographics to answer his
Sure,
question
yeah.
about Lancaster? If you take a look at the town of West Seneca, it's basically built out. We are at maximum capacity for housing, except for Fish Road development that's going on, should the state school property open up. But we're really built out as a community. With that, the people who moved here in the 1960s and 70s, they still live here, and the kids have since moved on.
Right.
And so you have, and Bob maybe can talk about this as far as housing turnover goes. You know, we have an aging population in West Seneca with an enormous amount of senior citizens, where communities like Lancaster, that's where all the new builds are going. So the younger people who are having the children, that's why you're having that little bit of a population explosion there, where it's a little slower or flat here, because the turnover here is steadier.
Right.
That's what I see from the position that I'm in, working for the town.
You
So-
mentioned the state school, that's Orchard Park District, isn't it?
I was talking about just being built out as far as the community
It
goes.
works.
Right.
Right.
But the census has gone down too. Because when I was a supervisor, the census was like 52,000 people, now it's down to like 47.
Again, Joan, you live in your house where your kids
Exactly.
grew up, and
Right.
everything, they
Right.
moved on, you're still there.
Joan,
That's
move
why
on.
the population has dropped. Our housing has gone up.
My daughter's still here.
I think it's asking to leave.
My daughter's still.
No,
But you know,
They
there's a lot
did
of.
put 4,000 in prison last year, so that could, they're not part of the census.
So I mean, realistically, that's where your shift
Right.
is around in the community.
Yeah, they're not staying in West Seneca, that's what we were talking about, is now what we need to do, like, what I would like to see is, they're steady, but then are they staying here? What is in the town that's gonna keep them?
Nobody's moving out in mass. The
No, I know,
population's
no,
staying
I-
steady.
Right.
Yeah, but
The younger
the
people
young
are-
families are, yeah, we
Just
have a lot
because
of
there's not an
friends that,
opportunity for them to purchase here.
that's,
Right.
You're built out.
Or they move
Remember,
out of town. They move out of town because of jobs.
yeah.
I may be contributing to it with my advice that I tell people, when your kids move out, make them take their bedroom set with them.
Yeah. Or knock down a wall so they don't come back, right?
Mr.
Remember-
Graham,
Yep.
why don't you have the data? Like, why don't they have?
It's just not on
They
that
don't
site.
have it, huh?
Yeah, it's not there.
Huh.
I remember I said that I color code this about
No.
the changes. So this is, hopefully you can see, every month I update this. And, this color means that there was a change, and this color means it stayed the same. So you can see there is movement. Sometimes it's from, maybe school zone to school zone, but it's mostly this represents kids coming in, kids coming out. And overall, I shared with you, we've lost 40 since September in the district.
And net for.
Now, what did we gain though? Because I know you said we had kids that came in. If we lost 40 through the district, how many kids moved into our district?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay,
But
'cause I always
we're
wonder
down-
what the net is,
we're
because
down,
if
yeah.
we lost 40 and we gained 40,
No,
then we're back.
we're
That's
we're
after,
down
like,
40.
in and out,
So-
that's what's
September.
left.
So we might have had,
40 more
Oh.
students.
Oh, so we're,
So that is
okay.
a-
Yeah.
We might have
Okay,
had
so our
20
net is we're
in,
down.
60
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Okay.
And 40, could be one or two classrooms, right? So, what else did you talk about? Did you see anything else before I jumped into this? Okay. Bob?
Well, you know what you're looking for.
Well, and it's kind of hard to see it, but, so the way this chart is created, this chart is looking at next year, okay? So what I thought was interesting is that if we look, say, let's start over here. If we look in 2004, there were 501, births in West Seneca. We had 477 students come into kindergarten, or I should say, they're still with us. So if there were 500 children born, we have 477 in West Seneca right now in our schools. That, this number just basically represents, here's what's left of the 500 births. And looking next year at 5th grade, these are our current 4th grade numbers, okay? So if we look at 479 births, we have about 460 of those children. They may not be the same exact children, but we have 460. We had 520 births in 2006. We have only 446 kids. That's crazy. Here in 2007, 511 births. We have 460. Okay. Here's our 462. Look at the big drop. It's a pretty significant dip. And then here, we actually look at this. This is the only year that we have more children than were born. So for some reason, and I don't know, was this a significant year with respect to economics? Did we start to have trouble recession-wise after 2008? So, and just a hunch, I don't have any real data to support it, but for some reason, the only year in this whole picture, we have more kids in the public schools than were, attributed to West Seneca when they were born in 2008. Just kind of an interesting little change.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
about your numbers? When you say the burst, is that the burst for the entire town?
Yeah, I think
Or
it's
for the
just
district?
I think it's the town, and I think it's
Okay,
just
so-
attributed.
Getting back into what Bob said is, we could have all those bursts in towns, but some of those kids could have gone to Orchard Park School.
Absolutely, and the kids in
And Catholic
Chickawaga
schools,
or
yeah.
Blaisdell or
Okay.
Buffalo, so
I got
we
it.
touch all those pieces, so I don't have those real numbers.
I got you.
But I just, looking at this, it's just kind of interesting to try to make a prediction. So we know that in 2009, there were about 519. These will be our new kindergarten registrants. So that's why this row is blank, because they haven't registered and been attributed to the schools yet. So it'll be interesting to see also when we start to kind of take a look at our universal pre-kindergarten registrations, we'll have some data, we won't have it complete yet. So this is just a way that I've organized it to help try to make predictions. One of the things that seems to be true is that, on average, we're taking in, about 477 of those new children. So I thought that that's, kind of an interesting number and one that I thought we would use. And of course, I don't have the data yet for these years. But down here, I'm just taking the average. We're somewhere in the 470s. It'll be great if it's closer to 490. But even if it is, it's not going to change our overall elementary enrollment by a lot. So, as we're starting to look at these numbers and how many children are in those, how many we captured, I don't see us varying too significantly in the future. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So on that note, and you look at the numbers, east versus west, would the district ever consider redistricting?
Yeah, and again, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
This is that commission that will talk about
Okay,
all
and that
those.
is the whole beginning part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I'm saying like we were just whispering to each
that would
other.
be the big, yeah, okay, sorry about that, I didn't hear that part.
I have a question.
Sure.
I know you're basing this on, some people go to Orchard Park and stuff, but like at Northwood, I feel like half the school is coming from Cheektowaga.
Yeah, so
We have
those-
the apartments
So
and
it
all
might
of.
even be lower,
Yeah.
because we have Cheektowaga.
Oh, you do, absolutely. So we, all
So
I
how can you base like a whole, your
Here's-
predictions on, it's confusing.
It's gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's how I base it, right here. So I don't, they can
so
come
it doesn't
from-
matter who's born in Cheektowaga, who's
Doesn't
born
matter.
in.
Orchard Park,
It's just who-
Buffalo, South Buffalo, wherever we touch and
Mhm.
wherever we draw children from, this number seems to be relatively consistent over the last 5 years. These are our numbers. These are the children that are currently with us. So we know that they're with us. And we can kind of, I'm estimating that the numbers are going to be somewhere around here for the 2014 kindergartners, the kindergarten babies. It's going to be here. I will be thrilled if it's 490. Chances are it might be closer to 470 because you can see here's the 470, here's 460, big dip, back up to 460, back up to 490. But if we, I'm not anticipating this to be at 550 or 600. So we can pretty much kind of guess, that it's going to be somewhere close to, and I'm just, for the sake of it, I just chose 492 just for fun. But it's going to be somewhere in this range, I believe, And again, looking back at the top, we can now just kind of guess, it's just a guess, but we can see, okay, there were 519 births attributed to West Seneca. Here we had 520, and we only captured 446. Here was 515, well, I don't have that number. So it's going to be interesting to see what the real number is. And with the Catholic schools closing, the principal of Queen of Heaven told me today she's at about 334 with all the new kids from 14 Holy Helpers and St. Vincent's enrolling in her school. And she said that she's doubled her projected enrollment. But it's 334. It's not, even though it's big for them, it's not that big, So, is this okay? Can I keep going?
Yep.
All right. Okay.
This is really good information.
I'm
So-
going to sneak backwards for a second, I apologize.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
When we talked about bus routes, was that just 2 West Seneca Central School District schools or all students bused?
I believe it's
It's
all.
all children
believe
that
it's
go
all.
beyond
Yeah.
our doors. So, we know we have about 946 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at West Middle right now. For this current school year, as of March 14th, or whenever I called this data. The prediction for next year is about the same, about 936. Okay? But look what happens 2 years from now. 893, 847, 831. 5 years from now. And why are the numbers getting smaller? Because we know what our numbers are, right? For the district, we know what they are, and we know what they are on the west side and the east side. So when I take these numbers and we start to move them up to West Middle over the next 5 years, what do you see in 5 years? For West Middle, what do you see?
Down by over 100.
And how many of you have had children in the middle schools already? What is about 130
That's a team.
kids?
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
a whole
team.
team.
It's a team. It's a whole team. Okay? So in 5 years, West Middle looks like they will be down a team. Okay? That's a big change for the middle schools. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The thing is, though, when you look
What do
at
you-
this,
what do you mean by
they'll
a
be down, a team is made up of 4 generally 4 teachers, math, science, social studies, English, thank you. And the thing is, though, is you're down a team, but it's not necessarily a whole team, because if you've got 3 different grade levels in there and you're down 30 kids in one grade level and you know what I mean? Like, it's not a whole, you're gonna have pockets again.
Yeah, there's usually 3 teams per grade level. So like 6th grade has like 3 teams. They have a 6A, 6B, 6C, just so that's how they're divided up by teams.
Okay.
Right. So, but it is a very, very, very important number. Because what does it tell us as district administrators? if we had an English teacher retire in the district,
You know not to replace.
should we replace them? Because we're going to be down in 5 years a whole team, English, math, science, and social studies.
Right.
So this is why the projection is important, not only for us to understand the capacity in West Middle 5 years from now, is, we will have 130 fewer students, so that's more room in the building, but we also know that it may mean that we need to shift some middle school teachers up to the high schools, for example, to fill in needs there. So there's going to be some major changes just at West Middle in the next 5 years. Also, some of you might be thinking, we need to balance, right, East Middle and West Middle. East Middle has 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. West Middle has 6th, 7th, and 8th. Let's move all the 5th graders to West Middle. Well, does this tell us we can do that? No. There's not enough room.
And there's not physical room.
No, there's no space.
Exactly.
There's no space.
Oh my gosh.
So there's no, but in 5 years, look at all the
But
space.
in 5 years, we should move to this building.
All right, so this kind of data will help you as we get into slice committees and talking about.
Right, absolutely.
So question for you.
Yep.
One thought that if you want to, we'll go simplistic here. You have a budget right now, and your budget can fit all the teachers that you have right now. In 5 years from now, if you kept the same number of teachers, it fits within your budget. You're saying, let's get rid of a team. Now, if I take the opposite approach from a parent, I say, don't get rid of a team, make the class sizes smaller.
And that's what.
It's within your budget. You don't, why would we get rid of the team of teachers instead of going with less students in a class, and maybe now those numbers, instead of 84 and 91, they're 90 and 95.
Yeah, so Brian brings up a great point. Again, bringing us back to why are we here? Why are we going to study this for 18 months, right? Because we're just going to make recommendations. And the recommendation might be, we're not going to get rid of anything. We're going to keep everything status quo. But I think the next thing I'm going to show you.
I'm always must be behind at something.
Might just give you
school did you go to?
some more information. So here's what it looks like for East Middle over the next 5 years. We have this year 930 students. Next year we drop to
Wow.
48. Remember I said that they have the healthiest, the most students they've ever had. Okay, so those kids are going to go up to East Senior, right? And they're going to drop. Then they're going to drop again, and in 5 years they actually go up a little bit. But look what happened. They will be down 171 children in 5 years. So as the elementary kindergartens and first grades and second grades seems to have stabilized with about 470 to 490 kids, we can kind of predict that that's what's going to happen. Those kids are getting older and older and older. Now they're moving up into the middle schools. And in the next 5 years, those middle schools will have a lot of room. There will be a lot of room. So going back to Brian's point, as a commission, we might say keep everything status quo. But the numbers might be telling us, wow, we're now down 171 plus the 131 students in 5 years at the middle schools.
We could get a big wave of all the old people, just move away.
Right.
Like all these babies.
You know what?
Joan's taking offense right here, okay? Joan is not happy. You're kicking her out of her house.
My in-laws.
You know what?
My in-laws are perfect.
I got you, Joan.
Joan, you could stay with me.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, Stephen.
If I may, I hope I'm not going to steal your thunder, but if I may add comment. Every student we have is tied to a fiscal amount. So if the enrollment goes down, state aid goes down.
Oh,
So that kind of shows.
That's great, Stephen.
I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome.
Good
That's great.
point, really good point.
Right.
Excellent, excellent.
Costs go up every year too.
Well, I was also thinking too, though, that you got the taxes, and the tax revenue is pretty stable. We have capacity here. We know pretty sure what the tax revenue is coming, so at least we have one stable figure, from that side.
Well,
Just not going up like other.
The one thing though that we want to bring up is with the school budget and the state aid from the state, it's not always stable. We have a tax cap, so we can only raise taxes so much, and they're always playing with how much they're going to be giving us. It's like a
And
Russian roulette.
And right now, it's not
Right.
looking good for public education,
Right.
but the state.
So unfortunately, that can be, a problem
It all
too.
factors in.
Yeah.
The, one of the best things that we can't really address is this commission, but we need more businesses to move into West Seneca. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Being a chamber member and a board member with
Tax
Brian and
breaks.
Bob and,
No kids.
yep. Get those people with 4 and 5 kids out of town.
Very good. So, you probably already did the math, so you don't need to do it, but if we took the east and west and put them together as a district middle school, we, would have 1,876 students this year, and then in 5 years from now, 1,574 students, a decrease of 302 students in 5 years. So those are real important numbers for our commission to comprehend and digest. And here's what West Senior looks like. So this year, 1,324 students, and you can see again a steady decline, 1,272, 1,259, 1,264, 1,231. And in 5 years, it looks like West Senior will be down 109 students. Okay. And remember, in this projection, I can only go 5 years. But we saw what was happening at the middle schools, right? And you can see it starting to impact the high school. And as we start moving these numbers away, these numbers will probably continue to get smaller, but eventually level off. They will eventually level off because I don't see the elementary numbers really changing very dramatically. And finally, the interesting bubble at East Senior is that they will go up. So remember I said that East Middle has been the healthiest with the most robust number of students. This year they're relatively low, but they're going to go up to 927, as high as 945, 940, dip again, and dip one more time to losing about 48 students in 5 years. But you can see that there will be this bubble here as those East Middle kids have now processed and gone through East Senior. So again, when we combine the high schools, we're looking at, in 5 years, a total of 157 children not in the high schools any longer. Okay? And so what does that look like for the entire district? So we'll kind of slide over here a little bit. And again, you're going to see that we have our secondary numbers projected for next year. Here we are at elementary, and this is elementary and then our new kindergartners. Remember I said I predicted 492 for next year? That's why that number's in there. So we would be somewhere around 6,614 projected, which isn't a major change from where we are now. But we were, when we started in September 9th, we had 6,750 students. So it really is, a little bit of a change, okay? And then as we go down to the next few years, you see, if you look at these columns, do you see much variability in elementary? With 2,139 plus about 490 kindergartners, 2,100 plus about 477, that's just a projection. And as we go down, I just kind of keep this projected at the 470 range. So I really don't see a major change in elementaries. I think we're at 2,260 or so right now. So it's really about what it looks like it will be. But as a district, in 5 years, we take the hit at the secondaries, and we will be down approximately 439 students in 5 years. And they will really be impacted the most at the high school. Again, this is about the size of a building, right? So it's important, for us again to see that in 5 years we will have another change in demographics and enrollment. which could impact our decisions, you know, as we, you know, work through this for the next 18 months.
Is this giving us pathways to make decisions? It seems like this is to make decisions now, not to affect so much next year, but to affect 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So if this group, getting way ahead of ourselves, says we're going to make this building, that building, this building, whatever, there would be a time period for the population to get used to that happening.
So are you saying that over the next 18 months, when we start coming up with ideas, people, because we're videotaping this, it's transparent, people will have a chance to digest some of these numbers and some of these possible? I think so, but again, yeah, I'm not sure 18 months now what it is we're going to be giving to the Board of Education to
No, but
consider.
it may be not something to start in the 19th month.
Correct.
Yeah.
Could be 24 months or 36 months or
Right.
yes. Mhm.
Right.
Yep, like more of a long range
Right,
than
and
an
to give
immediate.
everybody a chance to absorb this whole thing and
Right.
reason for it.
And I think the other thing that we need to remember is in 18 months, if we give this recommendation to the board in month 19, they are not going to have been able to act and implement whatever we might be sending to them. They may choose not to act on anything, but they may say, you know what, this really has some merit, we want to talk about it, we want to move on it. It could take them 3 or 4 to 6 months to move on something, and then it might be to implement it so it doesn't mean in the end of 18 months that something could
No, and
immediately happen.
Fiscally, a lot can happen too with
Correct.
that district beforehand anyway, so we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves with
Yeah.
that, but.
Yeah, but any decision that we make isn't necessarily going to be, any recommendation, not a decision, because the Board of Education will make the decision. But any recommendation that we make, the implementation is not necessarily an immediate implementation. We need to think about that too.
What we don't know is what will be the long-term impact of the parental protest over the decreasing school funding. And that's hitting everybody pretty big time.
So Bob, could you just explain that a little bit?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that if there continues to be a grass level protest over the state's decrease in the school district's funding, it may have enough of an impact to affect us, slow it down or positively down the road. So I don't think we can stop that train. We hope we keep it going.
So we need to continue to talk to our legislators and then ask for the gap elimination, monies that they took away from us a long time ago. And yeah, I think you're right. Advocacy is very important, and we really are trying to maintain great programs in West Seneca, and the more that we have to work with will help us with that.
Have we ever really gotten a correlation explanation between the lottery earnings and the school's income?
You mean the actual New York State lottery?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know.
Extrapolating numbers.
I don't know. I think I recently heard that a lot of funding for state education actually a lot of it comes from stock market changes, and that the state education department has a little bit of, I'm not exactly sure what the number is, but every time there's a sale in the positive, Joe, and you might be able to help us with that a little bit, but I do believe that that's a big way in which education is funded. And Joe, you probably could have a better explanation.
Everything you both said is accurate, but nobody knows. It's like the calculation for the GPA and the tax cap and all those things, they don't add up.
They're phantom
Yeah,
formulas.
there's a saying in Albany that there's this black box that we've been protesting and asking for, just tell us how you figure this out. Because when you look at the amount of money that some districts have lost through the years, through this gap elimination adjustment, it just doesn't add up. And when you look at a 2% tax cap, it's really less than that. I mean, some school districts are literally, it's a negative tax cap. So nobody can explain that formula, and it's just like the lottery, it's just like the sales, all these things that we're told are to give more money, we don't ever see it. You know, the governor came out in his speech and said, I have $2 billion of surplus. Okay, where did he get it from? What is he doing with it? And I've been following along because I'm waiting the budget that is going on right now, the battle going back and forth, and the money that he's offering and what he's trying to do. It's, I don't have an answer. Unfortunately, the way the New York State budget goes, there's 4 people that decide how it goes. And when you go and talk to the assemblymen and talk to the state senators, and I know Mrs. Delmo would be able to tell you firsthand that she's got a pair of boxing gloves in her car that she brings every time she meets with the commissioner or with anybody in the budget. We ask them and they say, we don't know. This is coming from the assemblymen and the senators. We don't know. And I won't say because the camera's out what they call it, Cuomo, because Big Brother's watching. Thank you, Mr. Mason. But, no, in all seriousness, I don't. All these things are supposed to be there, but what those numbers are, we don't know.
Yeah, because I know Channel 2 did that piece, what, it was a month ago, where they said about the lotto numbers, and that the lotto campaign is that the kids singing and saying thank you for supporting the schools, and they ran a big piece saying that that's a big crock, that money's not really getting to the schools. So it's out there. You got people looking into it. It's just, who knows if it's ever going to get fixed for the money to go where it was originally intended to go. So
we stay vigilant and we stay on top of it. We talk to our legislators. That's really where, who we need to make accountable.
I just want to show one more thing, and then just maybe do the last visual. If you look at grades K through 5, and you see 488, 460, 445, 456, and so on. Now just take that number, move it down here, right, and keep these the same. And you see then 540, 552, 565, those numbers now drop to these numbers, right? And if we populated this whole spreadsheet with 480s, and once we have a school system where these 5 move on, we will probably have 6,200 students K through 12, where we had 6,700 to begin this school year. So just take those and move them down, and then you'll see the major change that's coming.
Brian, can you abstract for us the total school population each of the last, say, 10 years?
Yeah, sure.
That would be.
Is that something for next time?
That'd be great. Thank you.
However far back.
you mean you don't have it off the top of your head?
So the last 10 years, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's a question to ask.
Okay. All right. So we,
I just wanna add
absolutely.
a
Go
couple
ahead.
things.
Yep.
First off, the information that was just presented here is accurate, and it's going to be region-wide, statewide. I mean, throughout the entire Northeast, population's declining. 2010 was, I think, the highest point of graduation. Even if we look back 10 years, you're going to see huge peaks, and you're going to start to see a downward trend. Forward trend. I mean, obviously, in my line of work, looking at all the school districts, throughout the region, is extremely important to me. But we're looking at a down. It's going to level off, as you said, but drop down a little bit more. But at least until 2022, 2023 region-wide. So I just think it further, it further states with our mission and with our goals that maintaining the status quo is not really an option at this point. I mean, we really have to, think creatively and continue to think of ways that we could be innovative and, when I first sat down, I found it interesting that I was trying to force myself and to separate myself from the experience my child's going through. I mean, we're looking at long-range plans that could go into effect well after most of our kids, except for Ed's, because they keep coming. So I had to jump on that too. You mentioned it all the time.
We had a pool going.
But long after our kids are out of the district, and if many of us community members are going to be here, we want to see this district thrive, and so our kids, when they graduate, can be proud that they graduated from West Seneca. So I think that, as we move forward, we need to keep that in mind that, yes, our children are having experiences, and yes, that's driving some of our conversations, But at some point, as we move on through this 18-month period, we'll have to almost separate ourselves from the experience our kids are going through and start to look at the district in a way that we can systematize our thinking to get to that point where we're making decisions that are going to be long lasting. If I'm going to spend 18 months, here with a bunch of wonderful people, I want to make sure it's well worth it and that we put in something that is going to be quality and some great suggestions for the Board of Ed. And I just want to throw that out there. But my original point was that what we're experiencing here is not anything different than any other school district is going through. I think, that as we move forward, we have a wonderful opportunity to make some great positive changes.
I just want to say,
The district gave us an opportunity to do
yeah,
that.
I want to thank the school board and Dr. Crover, because I don't know how many other school districts are doing what we're doing now. I don't know how many other committees there are like this out there, but I definitely think this is great. I mean, we're going to make it great for our grandkids, and then when you have grandkids, you just got to move out of town.
Okay, we are slowly reaching the 9 o'clock hour, and I'm really trying to be mindful of the 2-hour meetings, because I think after that we kind of get a little fuzzy and we all have places to be tomorrow. So I asked Joe if we could put him on hold, and we'll start with him at the next meeting giving us the information on the facilities. However, those of you that want to do your homework can take your folder home with you and go over all the information that he gave to us to brief yourself and get ready for that discussion at our next meeting. I have a couple of things to ask you though, is having gone through what we discussed tonight, or anything else that you were thinking of over the past couple of weeks, is there any other information at this point that you would like gathered? A couple of things that I'm going to check on. I am going to get back in touch with Mr. Love to find out that driver number, to clarify that, if that 49 is correct or where we are with that. Brian, to clarify what you're going to be bringing with us next meeting is the last 10-year population? Okay, so Brian will bring that to us. Is there anything else that you have an inkling for that I can put out feelers for and get?
I think we should be planning building tours.
Building tours, yep, we
Yeah,
talked about that,
We've got 6
Bob.
elementary, maybe on one Saturday morning, afternoon, whatever, and then the 2 middle and 2 senior on another.
Absolutely. Wear a coat. Wear a coat. It's okay. It'll be springtime soon. That's a great idea, and that's going to take some coordination.
Yes.
So let's, we have a few minutes here, so let's talk about the building tours. I think for many of us, we're very familiar with the buildings that, if we have children, we're familiar with those particular buildings. We might go into another building to get to the auditorium or to get to the library or whatever, but we're not actually in and around, and I'm sure that that will really open up our eyes. So I think that's a great idea. Looking ahead, our next meeting is April 24th. We do have spring break in there also. So I think a Saturday would probably be the most logical, because we don't want to really disrupt children, and for many reasons, for the educational piece, for security pieces, and all of that. So any thoughts as to a Saturday coming up within April? Do we want to look at April, or do we want to push it into May? May. Okay. So when we get to May,
This right here, Joe doesn't have to turn the heat on.
Joe will not have to turn on the heat. It'll
We could
be
actually get little
toasty.
candle lights, so we don't have to turn
the
lights on.
minor lights.
All right.
You guys all
So
right.
I'm actually gonna look to Joe, because we're gonna definitely need him on this piece. So I'm gonna let you check your calendar and see if there might be a day that you might be available, and then we can get the ball rolling. What I think will probably be the most logical is we'll meet here. We'll take a school bus, and we'll do our little tour, and we'll ride on the bus, and we'll see the buildings, and go from there. Just
It'll be a
Yeah.
big bus, not a small bus.
Yes,
That's what I'm
yes,
saying.
we'll get a big bus, not a small bus.
You're putting me on the spot because I run my work calendar, you know, I gotta fly it by the tower, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so how about this? Joe's gonna check his schedule. He's gonna get back to me and I'll put out the date that's gonna work for Joe and we'll work our schedule around you because you're really gonna be the driver on this one. Okay?
And just, if people can't make it that day, you know, and you have a real desire to see something, contact me, we'll
Yeah.
get to that. And I do just wanna say one thing we were mentioning with the state school and stuff, that is in our district. The psych center isn't. Okay, if you come right down Angle Road, for some reason, there's a chunk out of that where the psych center is, but the developmental center does fall in our district, just so everyone knows that.
Okay. All right, so building tours, Joe and I will be in contact, and Ed, and we will come up with a date in May, and we'll run that. Joe, do you think it's physically possible to do everything in one day? Do you think we're going to need a 2 days?
Yeah,
I think
2 days?
yeah.
We're gonna, an hour later, we're not gonna know where we've been and what.
Okay. All right, so maybe split an east side and a west side? Okay. All right, we'll do an east side and a west side. So we'll come up with a couple of dates there, and let's make a plan that by the middle of June, we'll have completed 2 tour dates. That'll give us some time to get it on the calendar and some time for me to figure out the busing and all of that jazz, okay? So we will definitely know by next April, but I do have everyone's email. Also, if this is your first meeting with us, and I know Diane left, but I have her information. Make sure I have your email, and I have to check with Dan because his bounced back to me. So, okay, all right, perfect, thank you. Everyone else should have gotten an email with the agenda. If you didn't get an email, it didn't bounce back to me, so it went somewhere. So make sure that that's correct. And we'll stay in touch. We'll get the next agenda to you. So right now for the next agenda, we're going to start with Joe giving us answering the questions on the building. We'll get the information from Brian, and then we'll start in on our brainstorming. So you've got a few, with the information you heard tonight, it might trigger some other things. A couple of words that I think are really important to keep in mind is being innovative and being creative. So, all right, folks.
Hey, Brian, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned, like I have kids in elementary school, so when you guys mentioned that team thing, that is brand new to me.
Right.
When you look at the decreased numbers, how many students goes with one teacher team?
Anywhere between 100 and 130.
Okay.
So I want to throw out to anyone in the room, Mr. Yee has already graciously said we can figure it out. If for some reason you can't be here, or you're home or somewhere at work, and we can do a live, I don't know how you say that stuff. Sir, could you? We could stream you in. Like say you're at work or you can't make the actual meeting. We can, I was told Skype, yeah, like Skype you in. So just to let you know, like I have a parent who's stuck at home, the wife's not home and he's got the baby. Next time we can Skype him in, so.
This map, is this current? I mean, it has a date stamp of 1999.
To the best of my knowledge, that's what the district clerk had given to us when I asked for an updated map. So I'm guessing. Okay. All right, East L still is on it, but yes, as far as our boundaries, they shouldn't have changed, I wouldn't believe. So we'll also have building maps for next time. All right, any other questions? Joan?
It'd be nice at the beginning of the meetings to introduce ourselves because I do not know everybody.
I'm sorry, we did that at the last meeting, but that is Diane DeJoseph had to leave, but she is our representative from West Middle. She's the president of the PTO over there, and also was president at the Winchester PTA. And we have Joan joining us today, Joan Lillis. And if you want to you have a really interesting background to share with us. So if you want to give us kind of your scoop of your background too.
Well, I actually was a supervisor. I was a councilman and a supervisor at West Seneca for 24 years. And I'm a registered nurse. And
Grandchildren, you have grandchildren in the district?
I have 2 grandchildren in West Senior and 1 at West Elementary.
She's on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. She's on the Rotary Board and the Civic and Patriotics Group. Chairman in the Women's Club, right? Or no?
No, I don't.
Oh, they don't let you in that.
Too many women.
Yeah, too many women.
Okay. And at the next meeting, we'll just do another quick introduction just to make sure that everybody is on top. Yep, okay.
Lisa, one more for the buses. How much money did they save by canceling the buses that take the kids to their practices, their sports practices? My son runs cross country and they canceled the buses that used to take them to Chestnut Ridge. The parents had to drive. I'm just wondering what was saved. I'm not sure who else lost out on bus services either, what other sports. But I know the cross country team did.
And
Why didn't they run there?
We've been scaling back.
Chestnut Ridge and back.
That's a good practice.
It's a great question.
Dan, they need a police escort.
What's your first name? Sally. That's a great question. As a middle school principal in my previous role for 7 years, we used to, in the beginning of my 7-year start at West Mill, we ran buses everywhere, and over time those have been scaled back, even to the point of parents having to pick up, say, on Fridays, not running athletic buses home on Fridays. So I guess the question would be, over time, since we've made those changes, I'm going to say it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
It's fuel, it's wear and tear on buses, and also employees not being paid to drive those runs.
Right.
So over the last 5 years, I've seen that scaling back, and so it attributes over time and becomes probably a big savings over time.
And Lisa, is Mr. Love gonna come to the meeting or no?
When we get to that point, we will definitely, when we really want to talk about transportation, we will definitely have him come.
I just have a crazy question. My daughter told me that she went with the bus driver to get gas the other day. And I was like, what? I go, what do you mean? She's like, oh, we've done it more than one time. And I didn't think that was...
Our buses fuel at our transportation office. So in our transportation department, that's where they
fuel. I said,
fuel.
he got off the bus? She's like, no, someone got. I go, well, where was it?
It's right next door to West Senior.
But don't you think they should be doing that?
It certainly would be much preferred.
I didn't know what that was going to do either.
I can tell you that I've called him a few times on stuff, and give him a quick call.
Yeah.
He's usually right there to answer.
I'm just curious. If that's...
Yeah, it probably was an anomaly, obviously. It doesn't happen.
His points were going to expire. So.
It tops.
Yeah, that is a little.
All right, folks, again, thank you so much for being here and giving up your time. We will see you in April. Again, the meeting time, April 24th, and we'll be here from 7 to 9. We also have Thursday, May 15th on our calendar, so get that on, and as soon as we get those Saturdays cemented, we'll get those to you too. Okay, thanks again.